Hello, it's me, Jay, your DM. I use he, him.
And I'm Jerika. I use she, her.
And I'm Air. I use he, him. No, it's just Jerika today.
True.
The classic combo. It's gonna get fast. It's gonna get weird. It's gonna have accents.
Highly likely.
Yeah. Of course. And this is Insight Check, where we delve into the dungeon of your bad decisions to retrieve the treasure of wisdom. All right, so the great news is that because it's the two of us, we could just like tackle a smorgasbord of questions. We're on task. We're on point. We're ready to just crush this.
I have a question before we begin tackling
I have
questions.
answers.
What did you have for dinner tonight?
That's a great question. I had chili dogs.
Ooh, that sounds delightful.
It was fun. It's easy, you know? And one of the things about cooking for one person is that it's so hard to get the portions right. Like, that you don't have a bunch of
agree.
leftovers. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But see, I planned for leftovers. I was like, just have that tomorrow and the next day and the next day.
I'm the world's worst to eat leftovers, though. I don't want old food. I want new food.
I see.
Yeah. So it's challenging to be a 12-year-old in an adult's body.
This was this was like sort of my dungeon crawl equivalent. So why don't you ask me, Jay?
Jerika, do you have a dungeon crawl?
No, but I can tell you what I had for dinner. I had taco salad with tofu. It was delightful. It's what I had last Friday, too. We're recording this on Friday, everybody.
Oh, taco salad is fantastic because, you know, honestly,
Delicious.
if I can say the one thing about a taco that can be kind of disappointing is the shell, you know? It's just like a bunch of bread.
I mean, sometimes corn, and flat and other things.
But it's if you get it folded up in that wrong way and there's like 4 layers of shell between you and the innards of the taco, and all you're just doing is chomping through a big 3-inch thick layer of bread.
Not great.
No.
Yeah.
So a salad removes the least critical element of the taco.
I agree.
Although I guess, you know, to be a taco, the shell is necessary, but to be a taco salad, it's not. And so maybe that's the better form factor for this food.
I agree. We're going to make decisive decisions like this for the rest of the episode.
That was your kitchen crawl for this episode. Yep. And you know what was really good is how you asked me a question and then set me up to ask it back to you, and I didn't pick up on it at all.
I fixed it, though. It's fine.
Yeah, that's the kind of high-quality synergy you can expect on this episode of Inside Check.
Oh, yeah.
I don't really have a dungeon crawl, so let's get right to it. Today, we are tackling the topic of it's very relevant. It's almost like Jerika plans these things. God. We're talking about food in Dungeons & Dragons.
Woo!
We are on the subject of diversifying your diet.
I can tell you what my inspiration was.
Sure, what was that?
It was you.
Really?
Because in the most recent episode of our Monday night game in Shambhala.
I love that you call it an episode. That's very interesting to me.
That's how I think about
D&D
these days.
Because it does kind of have that vibe. I feel like the way I run it is kind of very episodic, huh?
Yeah, it has been that way.
Yeah.
But we were visiting this awesome underground dreidel town. And
that is a very accurate description of the location.
Well, with the dark elves, not drow. And there was a moment when we were, I think, experiencing perhaps a buffet type scenario of breakfast foods. And you, I was very impressed by the way that you manipulated your verbal utterances and gave us a slew of food options, and they were all very interesting and delightful and delectable sounding.
Yeah, this was something that I have been making an effort with for a while now, is to try and, when we create a new location in the game, to create a menu for that location. It's something I like to do. It's kind of easy. It's not too difficult. I just sort of think about what kind of region of the world I'm sort of trying to emulate in this area. And then I just look up dishes from that area and I put them together. And that creates a diversified menu in every location. So that way you're never eating the same stuff over and over.
Can I ask what the inspiration for Underground Dreidel was?
I feel like elven food is very vegan friendly. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it's very kind of, I want to say that elven food is kind of European a little bit in my stuff. Which I know one of the major problems can be that like almost all the food in Dungeons and Dragons is very European. So it's good to break away from that. But I consider elven food to be a little European, maybe Mediterranean a little bit in that area. Yeah, Central Europe, I would say.
Gotcha.
So this actually gets into something that Dunami posted a while back. Here is a little brief thread. Dunami posted, want to know a litmus test I use about diversity in D&D? Check out what you're serving on the menu. If you've got a diverse array of races and people from all cultures that interact with each other, but all they are eating are variations of stew, bread, beer, and cheese, if the most exotic thing you've got is lambus bread, aka hardtack, but actually tasty, then y'all need to go to Jesus with that. I think about the copy on the Wizards D&D freelance artist submission page. We want to see scenes that transport us, where we can almost hear the music, smell, the stew pots, and the taste of ale. And people are confused when I tell them that D&D is explicitly Euro-coded. So Dunami was talking about this, and it was actually kind of funny because I had your session where we went into food, but I also actually had a previous session with another group that had been largely based around eating at a tavern. And that one was in Istendel, which is more of my northeastern Egypt, Middle East kind of region of the world. Mm-hmm. They'd been having some different, they had a different menu over there.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm.
Lots of pitaya, kind of fruits, desert fruits that don't struggle with water shortages and stuff like that. And it's something I had to really research beforehand. Like, what fruits are available in a desert? Like, in a desert environment, what actually grows? They had, like, lamb. They had hummus and couscous and things like that. Really, it was honestly made me very hungry. It was really good food. I talked about how in this region of the world, they have hookah, which is, you know, in our modern society, not so rare, but I think 30 years ago would have been a little less common. But like in this region of the world, I think it makes perfect sense that instead of being mainly alcohol drinkers, they're mainly hookah smokers, with some alcohol still available, imported and stuff like that. But it's not really what they get up to. Yeah, I thought it was kind of cool to just sort of play around with food and to make it a little more interesting. Another resource that I like to use, and I actually had to pull this one out during our session when you were asking me specifics about what was on the menu.
Yes.
I have a big list of fantasy foods that I also like to pull from.
Ooh. And
I wanted something kind of central to the menu here, like a special item. So I went and searched through this list of fantasy foods. It is by Power Score RPG, a pretty fine fella on the Twitters. And we'll link it on the tweet.
And a previous guest.
Yes, indeed. And it is just a list of tons of food at different price points. So I believe at one point I asked like about how expensive do I think this meal was. And then once I figured that out, I could just go to the list of modest or comfortable and pull off menu items from there. And then I had also, there's a one called Underdark food. So you can go through there and find some different foods that are specific to the Underdark. Really helpful for on the fly. So I had like a little menu, but then I wanted something kind of special. So I went and looked through here and they had a really cool item. Here it is. Thane wing. Spiced and diced goose, partridge, quail, and woodguff, wild turkey. Most elves are revolted at the thought of eating owls, whom they deem intelligent souls, and believe dining on raptors brings misfortune on oneself and one's skin. That's a great example of a flavorful food you could put in your setting.
Very cool. I recently ran a one-shot for my West Marches game, and it was the first time I had run in this setting. Mm-hmm. Usually I play, And the scenario was that there was a fair going on of merchants from far and wide who are coming together for the last day before they have to leave before storm season. And I thought it would be really cool to have some sort of like international specials available from the inn in town. And they were all, things they don't have on the island usually, because we're on an island.
Yeah.
And so there's no cattle industry. They have little things like goats and sheep and things like that.
Yeah.
So there was some meats, but the most interesting thing that I was researching was exotic alcohols. And I found a really cool list online of just like cool alcohols, and they have really nifty names. So I threw that in there, and I enjoyed that quite a bit.
Here is an example menu from one of my locations in Istendel. Fried bony fish and hummus, lamb stew and naan, chicken stew with cinnamon couscous, and imported Sylvandrian elven wine.
Cinnamon couscous sounds delightful, and I want it. So thanks, Jay. Actually, I have couscous and cinnamon in my kitchen right now.
You've got dinner lined up. You're ready to go. Yeah, so make menus for your game. It doesn't take very long. Just sort of think about a region of the world you want to emulate their food. And pick different regions for different locations, so that way every area feels different. I really like adding signature dishes to locations as well, because I feel like that's very, like, real to the world, right? Every shop has its, like, signature dish, so to speak, right? Let's get into answering some cues about food.
Yay.
So we've got quite a bevy of options here. I think that we'll just start from the top and work our way down.
Sounds good.
D&D is pretty strict about food and water rules. Do DMs follow them? That's a great question. It depends on your DM, I guess. I would say that I don't, like, strictly bookkeep my players' eating and drinking habits. There's a lot of abstraction that happens in Dungeons and Dragons. A lot of things are sort of taken for granted. We don't monitor everybody's poops and pees either. So I don't know that we necessarily, as long as people are like stocking up here and there, I think that food should only be an issue if it's an issue.
So what is the penalty for not eating and drinking? Is it exhaustion?
Yeah.
Okay.
You have to drink a number of gallons and a number of pounds of food per day. And if you don't, then you start to take levels of exhaustion for each. And they don't go away until you've eaten.
Gotcha.
So unlike most exhaustion, long rest isn't good enough. You've got to actually eat before you can get rid of that exhaustion, which makes a certain degree of sense. You don't stop starving when you sleep. I wish
exactly.
you did. Life would be much cheaper.
Definitely. So you were mentioning that that these rules should apply when it's narratively appropriate.
Yeah, when it's interesting, right? Like, we shouldn't really worry about food until your players are in a situation where they might starve. Then it becomes relevant to worry about food. Like, if you're crossing a desert, probably water is going to be something you monitor more closely. If you're in the plane of elemental fire, then yeah, water is going to be something you're going to have to worry about. Desert, probably you'll have to worry about food a little bit as well. But if your players are, just out of town and they've got their provisions and things like that, then don't worry about it. But like, I think I had one session in our current game where I brought up food as being somewhat concerning because you had gone for nearly a month in the woods and you hadn't been able to resupply anywhere. That made a little bit of sense to me. But generally speaking, you're in the forest, you're stopping at towns, you can find food. So it's not going to be an ongoing concern as long as you can stop here and there to pick up fresh water and some like filler foods, like, the sort of basics, beans and rice and lentils and stuff like that that'll fill out what you can hunt in the woods. Yeah. So I think that if it's like, food should be a concern if it's important or if you're like in a problem. If you've been like taken captive and all your supplies were taken away and then you escaped prison, well, now you've got to figure out how to round up enough food to get back home. That might be a situation where I care about food, but other than that, I don't really. What do you think?
I think that it should be used again for urgency, like you mentioned, or for storytelling purposes, where the variation in food across wherever you are traveling to can tell a little bit of story about where you're traveling to.
It looks like a player must eat 1 pound of food per day to subsist and must drink 1 gallon of water per day, or 2 if the climate is harsh.
Aha.
So those are the official rules.
I think we should go from too little food to too much. Can create food and water be used to drown humanoids? This Reddit user asks.
The logic is that the water persists in your stomach, right? So it is not like it's not like some in woodland beings where it just like goes back to the Feywild after a little while, right? Like it has become part of your musculature. You have consumed it. It is literally going to be with you forever. Yeah, I think that it's solid. Yeah, it's real. So if you could hold their head down in it long enough, God, what an incredible scenario that you've concocted here. Where you summon you summon like 10 gallons of water, and then you just wrestle with somebody to hold their head down in it for, I don't know, a minute? How long does it take to drown?
Longer than a minute. That's what I know.
I think it's Constitution modifier in turns once you've run out of breath. And you have breath for Constitution modifier minutes +1. But that's only if you can like get your breath before you go under. So if like you surprise them and dunk their head in water, they've basically got like whatever their con mod is in turns before they start drowning. And once they start drowning is really bad because once you start drowning, you just drop to 0.
And then you take death saves, I assume.
Yep. Subsequent turns, you'll take death saving throws, and successes just delay. Like there's no way to save out of drowning. You have to be removed from the water.
So yes, Reddit user.
Yeah. Long story short, absolutely, good luck trying. I don't know what situation you're in where the most viable option is create food and water, but good luck.
It's a interesting use of a spell that seems to have been created for utility, and this is using it more for combat.
Create food and water is like the bane of a lot of DM's existence because it sort of ruins the style of play where you have resource scarcity. Like if you're trying to make water and food a very pressing matter for your players and one of them is a cleric, they can just choose to take create food and water and then there's no longer any concern.
And it's the same with Druids and Goodberry.
Yeah, resource scarcity is not really an easy thing to create. Basically, you have to make the holly consumed in Goodberry, and then you have to make holly rare in your world if you want that to be at all a concern for your players.
Right.
Yeah.
Riddle me this, J-Man. Does purify food and drink remove alcohol?
Now, we were kind of talking about this beforehand, and I think you came up with a pretty good point that maybe it increases alcohol.
So historically, drinks with alcohol in them were safer biologically than just water that was sitting outside getting all sorts of germs in it. So possibly back in the D&D days, alcohol was the drink of choice for sanitary reasons. So perhaps making
like sailing vessels and crews on ships would often be given a stipend of beer per day. I think it was something like 2 gallons of beer per day that they could just have, and that was their drinking for the day. Like they didn't get water because it was safer on a ship to just drink the beer.
Yep.
And I'm sure there were other reasons they wanted to drink 2 gallons of beer per day on a boat.
Yeah, maybe. Depending on what boat you're on.
It's very boring, I imagine, being a sailor at night.
Could be.
Yeah.
When you're done looking at the stars and naming them all, what else you got to live for, really?
Just the 2 gallons of beer.
Yeah, apparently. Maybe for your pet pseudo-dragon. How much for a week's supply of food for a pseudo-dragon? Additionally, how many pounds of food would a baby displacer beast eat per day? These are both from Reddit, and I think that both of these users had the same intention, which is to feed a new pet they have.
Yeah, exactly. I think the DM they might both be DMs who've accidentally given a pet to their players, and now they've got to figure out what the limiting factor is on pets. Like, oh my god, I've given them this, now they're going to collect everything. Let's make them keep track of food. That'll discourage them from getting more. The answer is a pound a day? Sure, sounds good. The answer is whatever is convenient for you. If you want it to be like, if you're the DM and you're just like super worried about your players collecting pseudo dragons like it's Pokemon, then just make them eat a lot, and then it's really annoying to feed them all the time.
Yeah, and that could just be a quirk of the individual. I eat every croissant that I see, and that is a unique feature of the Drake. So there you go.
Yeah, a Drake in their natural habitat will consume an infinite quantity of croissant.
It's true.
Of croissant.
To my detriment.
You know, is it to your detriment, though? The buttery, flaky goodness is more than worth any cost.
Tell my triglycerides, Jenny. Tell it to my triglycerides.
I feel like a triglyceride should be a D&D monster.
I like that idea.
Let's see, a pseudo-dragon and a displacer beast. I feel like the displacer beast has to eat every time it teleports. Like, I feel like that's a very energy-intensive activity. So therefore, you know, it has to carbo load. If you want your displacer beast to be poofing all around and be truly displaced, you have to carbo load that sucker. Get ready for the bread baking minigame every morning as you prepare.
But wait, displacer beasts are not... They're not, let's say, mammals in the classic sense. Are they? Oh boy, I think they're monstrosities.
Yes,
and I'm not sure exactly from where they originate. But I'm sure it's past the limits of our realm.
Okay.
So, like, what would they eat, though?
Oh.
I feel like shadows and broken glass might be something that they would eat.
See, that might be another good way to limit your players' pets if you make them eat weird shit. Like a pseudo-dragon might not eat food. It might collect gold, right? And it's just got to lay down on its gold pile for a while to get back its strength.
Yeah.
Like a big dragon. It's got to draw in some energy. You know, I read in a book once that the reason they have gold hoards is because gold helps them channel energy from the elemental planes.
Fascinating.
That is ridiculous. You can justify anything with bullshit logic like that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh,
whatever logic you need to make your game succeed in the way that you want to.
I do like the idea of a displacer beast eating shadows. Like, just having to find, like, delicious exotic shadows. Like, having to find interesting shapes that cast interesting shadows because it's getting bored of, like, human shadow.
Yeah. Ugh, I ate that before.
Yeah, so now you've got to find, like, an interesting object with a unique... Like, oh, I found a piece of glass and it, like, colors the shadow as it goes through. Oh, the displacer beast's gonna love that. This is great. You've created a rich narrative. Full flavor.
You helped.
Well, not really. Okay, this one I don't get. So you're gonna have to go ahead and explain why. What's the paladin's favorite food is in here?
It's the oath meal. Wink, wink, wink.
Oh no.
Yeah, I know.
Oh no. I feel like the comments here have to be...
I think it's like hashtag dad joke.
It tastes lawful, IMO.
Oh boy.
I was expecting just desserts. This is much better.
Guess it depends on the kind of paladin.
I gotta say, I'm charmed by the people of our D&D today. They took that joke in stride. You go for it, folks. Okay, so... A polymorph, a morbid food source. I think we know where this one's going. The old classic problem. We've been in this cave for 3 weeks. The paladins got broken legs and can't crawl their way out. We don't have the regenerate spell and we're out of food. Who do we eat? Well, with the power of polymorph, you could transform your ally into a mammoth and then just cut off a good old steak and then
roast it.
Yeah, cook that mammoth steak up and you've got dinner. And when all the hit points are depleted, your ally just turns back into themselves with none of their parts cut off.
No problem.
Yeah.
So I think it's an interesting concept. There's a thing in, I believe, Polymorph and in Wild Shape that says all of your equipment and anything you're carrying or wearing like morphs into whatever creature it is that you're becoming. And I feel like the same is sort of true the other way around. Like if something falls off of you, it kind of just dissipates. That would be my call on this.
Well, this is, see, for me, I kind of enjoy the dark comedy of our heroes.
It depends on what kind of flavor of game you're running.
Yeah. I enjoyed the sort of dark comedy of your heroes gathering
Which
around
chunk will they take today?
Yeah, this is very dark. This is extremely dark. We had a situation like this in our game once where we were out of food and somebody turned to you, the druid, and was like, hey, if you wild shape, can we just cut off a little steak?
Yeah, I think that was F-less.
And then we can just wild shape back and you'll be fine. And it's like, no, I don't want you to eat me.
Vanna wasn't a druid. Who might it have been?
I don't know if it was F-list. It was some game at some point.
Yeah. I remember that, like, my character in my head was very not into it.
Yes.
And they were like, no.
Well, I can imagine
like
that the process
idea.
of being carved up into steaks would be somewhat horrifying.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't think that you... listen, can you do it? Yes. Should you do it? That's a more complicated ethical question.
No.
There's a cost-benefit analysis that needs to happen.
Do you really want those memories? No, you don't. You might even have to like go on a quest to get rid of them.
I feel like your DM has created a very difficult situation for you if this is the sort of stuff you're considering. So honestly, my thoughts go out to you and your group today.
Yeah.
Hopefully that resolved itself in a more pleasant manner.
Yes, indeed.
Is there world hunger in D&D if we could just polymorph people into steak-bearing mammoths?
I mean, but you can conjure food and drink, so why not that?
But the food and drinks suck. That's part of the spell, is that they don't taste very good.
And so, maybe the party is constrained to just exotic meats, including the flesh of their allies.
They've been eating that, Create Food and Water's food so long that they're just sick of it. They can't eat another bite. They'll just go crazy. Time to eat the wizard. Is it vegan if it's Conjure Food and Water?
I feel like you can choose it to be vegan.
This is a very good question, though.
This food that I am conjuring is vegan.
No, I don't even think, if you summon a steak with Create Food and Water, it's vegan steak. Because it's not from an actual cow, right?
I mean... perhaps from a spectral cow of some variety. Where is that steak coming from?
That's the question, isn't it?
And then it turns into the first episode of Portlandia, but D&D style.
Now here's the question. Is there a celestial farm somewhere where they're preparing all the food for Conjure Food and Water? Is there some chef in Selesnya that is literally just sitting there every day, just okay, we got 6 orders of Conjure Food and Water today. Let's get some steaks cut up. Let's get some cheeses made.
I would say yes, because that sounds like a fun, foundation for a one-shot.
Oh, yeah, you go to Selesnya because the guy who makes food and water spells is, sick of cooking. And now you have to convince him to get back into the game. You have to go hunt some magical beast in order to teach them the meaning of food and the thrill
and
of
Christmas.
cheffery again.
Indeed.
Oh my God. This is a truly wonderful situation that we've concocted here. But though, let's assume that it's not from a celestial cooking. And it's just magic fluff turned into food shapes.
Yeah.
So that would be vegan. There's no suffering in the beef.
An animal had to work for it, and that animal was the spellcaster. But I'm not under duress.
The idea of veganism, right, is that you're trying to prevent harm and cruelty to animals in the whole process of like the preparation. Not just in like killing the animals, but like, how they live, how they grow. Do they actually get to live a natural life? That kind of thing is sort of like the cornerstone of veganism, right? Like you want to prevent cruelty at every stage of the food preparation process. Well, if you're just yanking that food out of the magical asshole of the universe, then I guess it's vegan, huh? Even if it's steak.
Yeah.
If it's cheese, if it's like, but it tastes like shit. That's the problem. It's like,
you think so?
Well, the spell says like it has like limited flavor or whatever. It doesn't have a lot of flavor. I guess that's supposed to be like a drawback. Like, oh, you don't want to always eat this stuff because it doesn't taste very good. But it's like, who cares? It's a game. I'm not actually eating it. As long as it fulfills the mechanical requirements of food, I don't give a shit.
Indeed.
I guess the answer is depends on where that food comes from. You as the DM need to think very critically about where the food comes from and conjure food and water, because that too could be the source of many adventures.
Indeed, for sure.
We just blew through all those cues.
Mm-hmm. I do want to bring up here at the very possibly end. Sure. There was a website, you may remember it, that did displays of D&D foods. And often they would have like coinage nearby. So they do like orc meals. Like it would be typical meals from certain races.
Yes, I have it right here. I'm pasting it here.
It's one of my favorite websites. It is.
So it's a browser. It's a gallery on Imgur.
Imager.
Imgur.
Imager.
By the Nazar Doc.
Or Watts6831 on /r/RPG.
Yes, fair.
And it's delightful sort of spreads that represent the foods of different peoples. And some of these are great. Dwarf. Garlic chicken livers, smoked and peppered cheese, spiced pork sausages, hardtack, dried vegetables, dried wild mushrooms. Halfling, honey tack, hardtack, honey cakes, beef sausage, pork sausage, mini links, mini whole wheat toast, cranberry cheddar cheese, mini wedge, mini pickles, pumpkin and sunflower seeds, and a traveler's cake. So, and I assume this lovely individual cooked and or assembled a lot of these things.
Yeah, it looks
themselves.
Like they used to run a Patreon where they would produce these meals, but they've since given it up because the last one was in 2017.
Yeah, I really enjoy these spreads. So if you have a chance to look at them, I highly recommend it.
They are incredible. Just gorgeous meals, all of them. They have a Mind Flayer's Thanksgiving, and it is just as gross as you would imagine. They have an ogre holiday platter. Has a lot of fingers and ears. I highly advise. Most of them are delicious looking. Some of them are gross.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I've used that many a time for reference on like what people are having for dinner on trail rations and stuff like that, because it can be a little harder to sort of figure out what people would eat as trail rations. I don't have that sort of experiential knowledge. And this person has done the legwork for us. So as a DM, I always advocate working smarter, not harder, using what's out there on the internet. Yeah, thank you for bringing this up, because this is actually a really great resource, and I love sharing it.
Yes.
Well, everyone, thank you for joining us on this food adventure. And you know what? As a special little extra thing here at the end, I would love if you would send me your food menus for your games, regional foods that you like to include, areas of the world you think are underrepresented in their food heritage. Yeah, I'd love to see it. I'd love to diversify my menus even further. What do you think elves in your world eat? What kind of food is that like? Anyway.
Spaghetti.
Send it to me. Are the elves the forest Italians?
No, I just think that like there's something I often have trouble eating spaghetti and staying pristine, but I feel like it would heighten the sort of poise and graciousness of the elves if they can eat spaghetti and not get a speck of sauce on them.
I just really like the idea of like Galadriel in her greatness, just slurping up a noodle.
I also enjoy that.
Just slurping up one spaghetti right in front of Frodo and the whole gang.
One little spaghetti.
Yeah.
One very long spaghetti.
Frodo's there, just like real beleaguered and tired over the quest to carrying the ring, and Galadriel's just doing like a little...
If you don't like mouth sounds, we apologize for this entire episode.
Frodo, please have some of my pasta, Frodo. I know that your journey has been hard, Frodo, but please have some of this delicious pasta.
It's the one ring of pasta. It's fine, that's not a thing.
I would like, Frodo, I would love to help you with this situation with the very bad ring you've got, but I've got to watch my lasagna. It's going to burn, Frodo. You must understand my lasagna. I've been working on it for 2 days. I've been making this delicious pasta for 2 days, Frodo. You have to understand I cannot leave the forest.
It's true. That's Galadriel.
It's honestly a better Galadriel explanation than the one they provide. Maybe Tolkien should take some writing tips from me for once. Jeez.
I think right at the end of this podcast, we should segue to the outro before throwing any more shit.
Thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Insight Check. We appreciate you tuning in. If you enjoyed this discussion of food, please go leave us a rating on whatever iTunes Survivor situation Apple's got going on over there. Just figure out the broken husk of Apple's iTunes situation and find us and then give us a review. It'd be great. We'd like to thank Amy T. Falcone for our faces. We wouldn't have faces without Amy T. Falcone, and that would be awful. We'd also like to thank Vince.
Because then we couldn't eat, because then we wouldn't have mouths. Okay.
Oh my god, it's all full circle.
Yeah.
We gotta have the faces from Amy T. Falcone so we can have the mouths, so we can eat the food, so we can play the game.
It's true.
Vince Up
Tell him about the music, Jay.
Vince Up creates a beautiful song called Never Stand Alone, which we have used. Very great song. Does have lyrics. We've mentioned that a couple times now, but it's been a while. That's a throwback for the classic fans. And as always...
Nope. Answering your cues from our collective A's, this
was...
Insight
Check! Alright, here we go. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Oh, it was like me and then you, me and then you. So it's like, I'll just remember that.
It was right on for me, so.
Yeah, it's the Discord delay.
For sure.
The speed of light has such unfortunate limitations.
That should be an episode topic.
On a more intelligent podcast than we make, it would be an episode topic.
Hope they're not coming for intelligent answers.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Oh my goodness. God, this food looks so good. Why do I eat such trash food? I had chili dogs today, and this is real food.
I mean, you gotta start with the man in the mirror, Jay. You gotta ask him to make a change. No message could be any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make a change.
Well, this got heavy here at the end, folks.
Right. I like you just the way you are.
I'm recovering from that one. I've been destroyed savagely here on this very podcast.
Before your very ears.